Welcome back to the World of Warcraft Legion alpha testing, and today I'm going to take a look at the changes for the Marksman spec hunter, along with Shogun, one of the hunters from my guild, to give some tips and advice there with things I might not be completely correct on. Unfortunately, the footage I recorded for this session was lost, so I went back and recorded some stock stuff here, just so you have a reference point for talents and abilities. It doesn't quite match up, but hopefully it's a suitable enough substitution. So, with that said, enjoy the following clips. Okay, so we can take a look at the Hunter talent tree then. It's pretty different from the old version, being almost completely revamped. The first tier here has the black arrow that you might be familiar with from survival spec that was in, wasn't it?
It was, yeah.
And it was just sort of a dot to trigger explosive shot, but at this point it's just a dot and doesn't trigger anything, so it's just a straight up damage increase. They generously give you 3 charges to start off with to front load your damage a bit, which I think is a pretty good approach. The other talent on this line, moving away from Black Arrow, is Steady Focus, and we've seen a version of this before in the old talent tree. It's just a case of using your generator, be it arcane shot or multi-shot, in this case twice in a row, and when you do that you're going to get your faster focus regeneration, so it functions very much like the old version of Steady Focus. The final talent in the row here is True Aim, and True Aim just amplifies your damage when you're hitting a single target for a long time. So if you're switching targets, this talent isn't going to bring you very much value, but if you continue to attack one target for a long period of time, your damage is going to ramp up and up. So my initial thought here is that True Aim is going to be very good if you're on some sort of single target boss fight without any adds. I guess that's kind of few and far between, but would you agree that that's a good use of the talent?
Yeah, it's the one that stands out to me. The only downside is how quick the buff can drop off. So it's a very quick drop off the target.
Okay, I hadn't actually looked at the duration of that. Let's have a look now. I'll just spec in there.
Yeah, it's about 3 seconds.
Okay, so yeah, you do very much need to be attacking this target a whole lot. And it's stacked by all of your shots pretty much. So yeah. I assume if you are hitting the target and you're generating focus properly, there's not going to be much risk of it dropping off, although during the cast time of aim shot it does get a little bit dicey, but it looks like you can just about keep it up. Yeah. But I guess at any point if you're distracted, like if a boss goes immune or anything like that happens, then this talent could lose a bit of value. And
then obviously, I think away from that one, Black Arrow appeals mainly because of the 3 charges as well.
Yeah, the 3 charges it just lets you get that damage up right away. I guess it's sort of good if you need to change target, you'll have your 3 charges there, or your 2 charges or whatever it is you're sitting on, and you can get your dots going, fast, and at the start of the fight you can get them going fast. It's hard to say what the best is in that line. All we really know is True Aim's not good if you change targets. I suppose Steady Focus might be good for AoEing since it triggers on multi-shot, but yeah, kind of hard to predict.
You'd imagine on bosses, True Aim will be the one. Black Arrow, probably PvP, and Steady Focus. I don't see much of a use of that other than AoE.
Okay. Next tier then we have the old Post Haste, which is just a talent that makes your disengage free you from movement impairing effects, increases your speeds. Pretty much the same as the old one, people will be familiar with that. The next talent on the row here is Farstrider, and that just reduces the cooldown of disengage. We had a talent that did that previously on the first tier, which was Crouching Tiger, Hidden Chimera, which doesn't exist anymore, so that just lets you disengage a bit more often in place of the old talent. The third one here is Dash, and that increases the duration of Aspect to the Cheetah. Now, Aspect to the Cheetah has actually changed. It used to just be the activatable thing that would give you the 30% move speeds, but would daze you if you're hit. You can see now that it increases your movement speed by 90% for a small period of time, and then when that's out, you get the 30% that you're used to. So Dash just increases both of those durations by 3 seconds, so you get 6 seconds of fast, and then I believe it's about 12 seconds of the 30%.
It is, yeah.
So yeah, it's pretty different from the old version. Do you think this is a benefit? I mean, it's going to see any more use than the older version of Aspect of the Cheetah?
First impression, I prefer the old version, the permanent speed buff.
Okay.
But this does seem nice when you click it. At least you feel a real big impact, rather than before it was just a bit of a slow increase. So it feels a bit like the Rogue Sprint.
Yeah, it gives you that on-demand movement. I suppose the on-demand movement might have been covered previously by something like Disengage, so I might question if it's really necessary for Hunter to have something like that. But yeah, I guess they just decided to get rid of Aspect of the Pack and Aspect of the Cheetah because, I don't know, it was too easy to troll your group with Pack, maybe.
Take away our fun.
Yeah, typical Blizzard. Okay, level 45 tier then, we have Explosive Shot, and you probably know Explosive Shot from Old Survival, but it's totally different. It's just the same name and same icon. It functions just completely differently. Basically, you just fire a big rocket, and then you press the button again to detonate it. So I think it's one of the first instances we've seen of a kind of skill like that, where it's got a moving projectile and you have to choose to detonate it. It feels like it could be difficult to use, because I know there can be some sort of terrain issues, like mages with frozen orb and so on might be familiar with the sort of problems that can run into.
So far from trying it, it seems to go above the ground, so I've not noticed any problems yet. But there's bound to be.
Yeah, it depends whether it obeys terrain or if it can fly through the air. Say, like, if you're standing on the edge of a cliff and you fire it, is it going to go forward or is it going to go down the edge of the cliff? That could impact how much, how easy it is to use, because if it follows terrain, there's a lot of potential for it to get stuck. Regardless, it seems like it could be a good talent for AoE, because you just get to detonate it on a bunch of stuff, and the better you are at timing it, the more damage you're going to get.
It's good for pulling packs as well. I've really enjoyed it so far. But I think the big thing is if you forget to detonate it, it just disappears and does nothing.
Yeah, which is never good, because, you know, your 30-second cooldown, you just waste that and nothing happens. Does it actually detonate at the end?
It doesn't, no. It just goes.
Just disappears. Okay, so there's not even any consolation there. Just you need to detonate it or you're in trouble.
Yep.
Okay, so exotic munitions. The incendiary ammo just gives you a chance to deal AoE damage on everything around you. It's pretty much just the AoE pick. Poisoned ammo does a dot, single target pick. Frozen ammo deals a slow target pick, I guess. Yeah. It's pretty versatile talent, but it's hard to say what's going to be better for like AoE compared to Explosive Shot. It's just a matter of numbers. I mean, I think it's going to be the case that one of these will be better unless Explosive Shot ends up having sort of terrain issues.
Yeah, I don't see much use for the exotic munitions now, but maybe a DPS meter will probably prove me wrong on that one.
Yeah, I think the current iteration of exotic munitions isn't used a great deal, is it?
No, it's not.
Okay, the final tier here is Trick Shot, and this makes it so your aim shot will ricochet between all targets that are vulnerable. Now, you might be wondering what vulnerable is, and it's the new way Hunter's Mark functions. So there's a passive talent that gives things like your Arcane Shot and your Multi-Shot a chance to apply your Hunter's Mark. And when that's applied, you can use this new skill called Marked Shot, and that's going to apply this vulnerable debuff which stacks 3 times. So part of the Marksman sort of rotation of abilities will be keeping this debuff up. And the Marked Shot will hit things that have Hunter's Mark, so you can apply the vulnerability to multiple targets at a time if you're target switching or using multi-shot properly. And this thing just sort of turns your aim shot into an AoE-ish ability as well. It seems like it has good potential to be powerful if you're managing your Hunter's Marks properly.
Yeah, definitely, yeah. I would imagine on that level it's going to be the go-to talent.
Yeah, it seems like it has good AoE potential. Perhaps something like Explosive Shot is easier to use, but you might get more out of Trick Shot if you manage to use it correctly.
Definitely, yeah.
Okay, so the next tier of talents then, we have the old Binding Shot. Not much to say there, it functions as it did before. Same case with the Wyvern Sting, very much the same as before, and the third one is Camouflage. almost the same as before, except the cooldown is increased, so no more perma-stealth for hunters. It's pretty much just a utility tier. I guess there's not much more to say besides pick whichever suits your current circumstances. So if you're soloing some sort of old instance, you might want camo. If you're doing a stun, like in your raid group or something, say, as we were doing on Gyrosh Heroic, you can use the binding shot. And then Wyvern Sound just speaks for itself, you get to sleep anything. I don't think there's much more to say on that line besides pick whichever one's best at the time, right?
Yeah, I think that'll be a painful one for hunters because we all like the camouflage and now we've got to take a talent to have it. And obviously binding shot was quite useful as well, so
yeah,
it's a bit of a painful level, that one.
It's never nice to have something that you had as baseline taken away and put into a talent, especially when you had to conflict with other things to actually get it back.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on then, level 75. We have Careful Aim. Marksman Hunters on Live have something like this already. It's a slightly weaker version, and it's added in a dot as well. I think the current version on Live also works with Focus Fire, but that's been removed, so that's axed from the talent. Just a straight DPS increase against things that are on high health. Maybe if you're doing some questing and you want to snipe targets down quickly, you can get the damage buff against lots of high health stuff. Potentially. Or some sort of ad comes in a fight and needs to be killed quickly. If you get early hits in, you can get the damage buff. Besides that, it's going to depend how long your target stays above 80% health. Obviously, if you're doing some sort of fight like Murmur in Shadow Labyrinth who starts on 20%, this talent has absolutely no value, so case by case basis, I guess. The next one on the tier here is Heightened Vulnerability. This just makes your mark shot apply 3 stacks of vulnerability to all marked targets. So it just means you only have to use mark shot once instead of the 3 times. Or if you're changing targets, it lets you do that quickly and get the vulnerability stacks up. Personally, I'm not sure if I like this vulnerability system too much. It seems like it punishes you for having to switch targets unless you take this talent. Do you think that's a fair assessment?
Yes, it does. It does do that, yeah.
It's like the sort of situation where you have in raids where like one person says they don't want to switch targets because it lowers their DPS. I'm just going to tunnel the boss because I don't want to apply all my debuffs again.
And this is the perfect argument for them.
Yeah. I mean, you could just say, well, take Heightened Vulnerability then, but we might find out that the other two are just, too powerful on that line.
Yeah.
I don't know, it's hard to say what a potential fix there could be. Maybe making Vulnerability only 1 stack, or just making it easier to activate, but it feels kind of punishing if people want to switch targets. Maybe we'll see that changed at some point.
Maybe even a longer duration, so you could apply the target to 2... Apply the stack to 2 targets, and then mix between as you need to.
Okay, so the final talent in this tier is Patient Sniper, and this one just buffs the previously mentioned vulnerability from your marked shot. It increases the damage of your aimed shot by a pretty significant amount, and aimed shot itself does a nice amount of damage. This talent could end up being a bit of a winner in terms of consistent damage. It doesn't have the problem of the 80% thing that Careful Aim does, and Heightened Vulnerability has basically no value if you're sticking to 1 target. So it seems like this could get a lot of use as the just go-to standard thing.
Yeah, it seems that from what I've been playing so far, it seems that you've got to keep your focus quite high, get that dead eye applied, and then get 2 aim shots in each time. I think if your focus is low and you're just getting 1 aim shot, you're not getting the full effect, and that's when Careful Aim might come back into it, or Heightened Vulnerability.
Alright, well, moving on then, next talent is A Murder of Crows. Exact same as the old one. People already know when this is useful. You can put the dot up, and if you manage to kill the target, you get the cooldown back. So if you're going between lots of targets quickly, say you're out in the world questing or something, it's going to be potentially pretty good. Next talent here is Barrage. As far as I can tell, it functions just like the old one. You spray arrows everywhere, you pull everything, you make your tank and your healer angry, but standard Barrage, it's a classic. Speaking of classic, the final one here is Volley, and hunters who played some time ago might know this. as the rain of arrows that was removed some time ago. It looks like it uses the old animation for volley. I know when volley existed, they had this animation originally, but then they brought in a newer one. I don't know, I guess the old one was more popular, but I'm not too sure. Regardless, I'd say barrage and volley sort of seem to compete for design space here. They're both sort of designed as an AoE talent. Do you think there's going to be any potential sort of niches for either of them?
Well, I think volley is a lot more controlled, but the problem with volley is you've got to place it.
Yeah.
Whereas barrage, you don't. So
I've noticed that volley also costs 80 focus rather than the 60 from barrage. Yeah. It's a pretty hefty investment.
Yeah. And if you compare it to Murder Crows, which is 30, it seems you'd still probably go with Murder Crows.
Yeah, I don't know if the tooltip for volley is incorrect as well, but it seems like the damage is incredibly low. I just imagine that's a tooltip error or some sort of tuning pass is needed. I guess that'd be brought up, because if you look at that compared to barrage, it seems like it's almost no contest.
Yeah.
Volley doesn't have a cooldown though, which is a potential perk if you want sustained AoE rather than the burst barrage gives you. But it just means that you're going to be sort of drained to focus all the time.
Yeah, the damage doesn't seem very high. I'm just testing on the dummies now, so it does need a definite boost, you'd say.
Okay, well, alpha is alpha, and I suppose they'll be doing tuning passes.
Yeah.
Not tuna passes. But yeah, I guess there's not much else you'd want to spend your focus on AoEing apart from your marked shot, so maybe you would have some spare just to spend on volley. Yeah, I suppose for sustained AoE, hopefully the idea is that volley is going to be a good thing to pick, but barrage is going to be sort of good for burst, perhaps barrage for single target as well, given that you might not be getting the Murder of Crows reset thing. Okay, final talent here. The first one on the row is Dark Ranger. I know this was one that you were pretty excited about.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. It doesn't feel very hunter-like, but it's definitely good fun having a pet come in and tank for you and keep the aggro off you all the way through. So I guess for leveling especially, that's going to be really handy. I can't see much use on a boss though. Yeah,
it seems like the design intent is pretty much just to give hunters back the idea of having a pet to taunt for you. Since the new style Marksman doesn't have the option of pet, it's pretty much lone wolf as standard. So it's like, hey, you want to go solo some boss or do something out in the world, you can have these pets to taunt for you. And you can go into 5-man dungeons and forget to turn the talent off and just have tanks yell at you.
Yeah.
Okay, next tier here is Headshot. Now, this pretty much just functions like the old Power Shot, without the annoying wind-up time, fortunately. It has a varying cost of focus, and I've noticed that 100 focus is going to do more damage than compared to 20 focus. It wasn't like a 1-to-5 ratio that you'd expect, so you might end up getting more mileage out of this using it at low focus rather than high focus, because it seems slightly more damage efficient there, even if it ends up doing less damage. Draining all of your focus at once might not be a good thing, but yeah, it remains to be seen, I guess. The final talent here, Lock and Loads, just gives you a random proc chance to trigger this Lock and Load, and it makes your next 2 aim shots cost no focus and be instant. And people will love having their instant aim shot back, because I believe that's one of the tier bonuses for hunters at the moment, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
Yeah, they've taken that away and given you the cast timed aim shot. So I guess, yeah, people will be glad to have that back, perhaps in the form of the talent, but it just depends whether it competes with damage with Headshot. Do you think there's a possibility the Lock and Load is going to be the standard one to go to there?
I would imagine so, yeah. I think that instant cast is going to be just too, especially with how powerful aim shot is. Especially, and if you put it in with the patient sniper as well.
I was just going to suggest that as well, yeah. If you're playing with patient sniper, it seems like the synergy there is real.
Yeah.
Okay, I assume if you talent that with trick shot as well, it's going to give you some extra damage on the ricochets. It could be a potential setup for AoE damage, although I suppose you lose the headshot damage on the AoEing, but I don't know, some testing required, potential synergy there.
Yeah, the headshot I just moved across just to test it across all the dummies, and it does some incredible damage. But I think anything with a serious damage requirement like bosses is going to be lock and load, patient sniper, and even trick shot just to boost it up a bit as well.
Yeah, it seems like Dark Ranger and Headshot just have, a sort of narrow application, and in any situation where you don't need those applications, then you'll just go straight to lock and load.
Yeah.
Okay, well, talents aside, we can have a look at the new toys that hunters have got, or the old toys that have been slightly modified. Aspects of the cheetah we covered previously, and that's just been changed from the old version. Sort of temporary sprint now. It's nice to get around a bit since we have a longer disengage cooldown, since the Crouching Tiger Hidden Chimera talent isn't available. The next one here, new aspect of the turtle, and you want to demonstrate that one since you like the aesthetic of it so much.
I do, I really like this one, yeah.
You pretty much just get a turtle shell over your head there. Question is though, is it really a turtle shell or is it a tortoise shell? Because Blizzard often seems to call tortoises turtles.
Who knows, yeah. The other thing I don't like about it, and the only thing I don't like about it, is it's so obvious when you're in PvP. It really highlights now when not to attack. I know the old deterrence was quite obvious as well, but this one really highlights it, especially with that nice green, bright colouring as well.
Yeah, it's much more visual. I guess that's something that paladins can sympathise with, given how obvious sort of blessing and protection is. It's the massive crown above your head, so I guess with deterrence, if you weren't looking too closely, maybe you could let it slip, but I think in this case it's not going to be the same. But yeah, people might have noticed it basically is just deterrence, except it lasts 8 seconds instead of 5. And unfortunately you only have 1 charge compared to the old 2, which is a bit of a loss. But they gave you an extra 3 seconds duration, which is supposed to make up for it. I'm not too convinced it does.
And made it look nice.
Which I suppose is relevant to some people. The next new toy you have here is Bursting Shot, and this is basically just Scatter Shot, except it works on a cone. It's essentially it, and it doesn't do any more than that. It's just Scatter Shot with a little bit more oomph. Concussive Shot there, people are used to that. Counter Shot, Disengage, all this stuff is the same. They didn't cut Eagle Eye, they decided to keep that in, which is nice. Exhilaration you might have been used to from the talents. This version is slightly different. It doesn't heal the pet, because of course you don't have one, but it does heal yourself. And you get a cooldown reduction on that after you kill a target. So we were suggesting this might be nice for sort of doing leveling, perhaps, or even maybe on a boss fight where you have to kill a lot of individual targets.
Yeah, if you have some ads coming into the boss fight, it could really help keeping you alive.
Yeah, it's a good amount of healing. I mean, every expansion Blizzard says we want to make healing more triage based, and we want people to spend more time not on full HP. So if at some point they do succeed in doing that, it's going to increase the value of Exhilaration by quite a lot. Feign Death, same as before. Flare, standard stuff. The only other one here that is new is this True Shot. I think this is taking the place of the old Rapid Fire cooldown you used to have. That's right, yeah?
Yeah, it is, yeah.
Rapid Fire before was just a haste buff, or did that give damage as well? I don't really recall.
It was just a haste buff, I'm sure it was.
Okay, so this one gives haste as well, and it just makes it so your Arcane Shot and your Multi-Shot have a 100% chance on applying the vulnerability thing that triggers your Marked Shot. So I guess at like the start of an encounter, that's pretty good for getting all of your stacks up really quickly. You can see if I just do that now, it triggers a lot and I'm getting my 3 stacks there really quickly. Likewise, if you multi-shot, you're going to get stacks on everything. So it's pretty nice. It's got applications on both single target and multi-target. You can just get the debuffs up there on lots of different things. Okay, so we can have a look at sort of how the Marksman rotation might potentially play out then. Arcane Shot is the new focus generator. So I'm sort of thinking like you want to dump your focus on aim shot and you want to generate your focus with Arcane Shot. Pretty straightforward, and keep up your Marked Shot as 3 stacks. Do you think that's going to be how it works? I mean, it doesn't seem like it's going to be too complex.
No, it's going to be quite a straightforward one. I think it's going to be how you utilise the extra abilities that's going to make or break how good you are.
Yeah, certainly. It seems like there is a lot of potential for extra buttons to be pressed here. And obviously you take some of the talents, you gain a few more buttons, like height and vulnerability, stuff like that, murder of crows, etc, etc. But it's a matter of, the actual damage rotation for Hunter is going to be relatively simple. And then you can sort of offer a lot more things, like if you're good with your target switching, then you're going to do a lot more damage, but you're getting your stacks up, and if you're good with sort of stunning and so on. So I don't think it's entirely utility. I think there's potential for Hunter to push out a bit more damage. Mainly on the target switching front, how good you are at getting those stacks up quickly. I don't know, it's a point of contention for me. I'm not sure I like that system too much. It does feel pretty punishing, but I guess use what you can. Do you like that? Do you think it's going to work out well?
At the minute, because I'm new to using the alpha, the beta, it seems very different. So it seems a bit fun because it's something new.
Yeah.
But if I really rate them against each other, I prefer the current system a lot more.
Okay, so describe to me what the current marksman system is then compared to what we have now. Like, what are the differences?
Well, we've lost that Chimera shot, and that was our biggest damage, and it hits two
targets. Yeah, that was like a good cleave there.
Yeah, that's been taken away completely, and nothing to really replace that.
I suppose you could somewhat emulate it with marked shot if you keep your hunter's mark on 2 targets.
Yeah, and you use the right talent to go with it, potentially.
So I suppose if you're hitting 2 targets, you might just forgo using aimed shot entirely and just use marked shot for your focus dump instead, since it'll hit multiple targets.
I think aim shot just does too much damage. Similar to the current Chimera shot, it's just too much damage to miss out on.
Okay, so the current iteration of Hunter, aim shot's pretty much the same, I believe, isn't it? It's just the big focus dump.
Aim shot, yeah, it's the focus dump when basically all the hunters at the minute is get the Chimera shot cast, and if the Chimera shot's not available, it's dump it with aim shot.
Okay, and you use the Thrill of the Hunt talent as well, or just as the costs of this?
Yes, yeah, and get more aim shots in.
Yeah, don't have that anymore, so it's the hefty cost of 50 focus per aim shot, so you're going to be spamming a lot of arcane shot to get that back.
Yeah, unless you use that lock and load. It seems that it's kind of forcing you to use that the more you think about it.
Yeah, possibly. So besides that, there's not much else being changed, is there? It seems like it's not too different. It's pretty much just a loss of the Chimera shot.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how they compare damage-wise against other classes, especially because we've been used to being quite high up this current expansion. And obviously it'll be tuned before launch anyway.
Yeah, maybe something like volley does a bit more damage by launch.
Yeah. At the minute it seems fun, like I say, because it's new, it's different, and it gets you intrigued. If it turns out to be really weak, it's going to be very frustrating and cause a lot of hate on the hunters.
Yeah, I guess
from the players.
Mr. Pandaria Warlocks can relate to that. All through Siege of Orgrimmar, it was, if your group's not 50% Warlocks, you're doing it wrong.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's see then. Potential sort of boss fight opener. We want to making sure our true shot is used at the start of the fight, and we want to try and dump our focus into aimed shot. And we just generate arcane shot here and get these marked shot procs. As soon as we get that, we want to fire the marked shot and get these vulnerability stacks up. You want to aim for 3 of those stacks. I think once those stacks are up, you probably want to stop using this marked shot because it does less damage than your aim shot would do. And aim shot is buffed here by these stacks. So I think it's just a case of firing this at the end of the duration to refresh. I think that's correct?
Yes, I do, yeah.
And beyond that, it seems pretty simple. Obviously you'd want to use your stuff like your talents. I'm not using any of them here because it's a choice of multiple things, but yeah, it seems like the base core without any talents is going to be pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
I say that and I've just let my marked shot stacks drop off, but yeah, obviously no auras or anything to track that, but yeah, it's not too different from the old version, I'd say. thanks for watching. Feel free to give me some feedback on whether or not the 2-person format is preferable to you, or whether or not you would like me just to do things by myself. And I'll see you next time for another look at a new spec changed in Legion.